I've fully rinsed my bank account this weekend. Last time we did an episode, we spoke about Leeds Festival and stuff quite a lot. I bought 2 tickets to see the 1975 in Manchester and in Leeds this week, which I know you're not probably a big fan of, but it got me thinking about like the overall price of gig tickets nowadays, because they were 60 quid each, which, I mean, it's quite high, but it's not as high as some of the gigs I've seen in recent weeks. Like Harry Styles announced his like new tour the other day, and admittedly I didn't like try to get onto the pre-sale or anything, but I thought, you know what, that'd actually be a pretty cool gig to go to. So I had a look at tickets, and Ticketmaster have this new pricing structure thing where the prices can fluctuate based on like how many people are looking at and buying tickets at any one time, as well as how many are left.
So are they going down the route of like airlines, where because they do the same thing where if you're buying flights, like if you do it in an incognito window or you do it in a separate browser, you get cheaper prices, or if you do it at this time of day.
I don't exactly know how it works like to a T, but I just know that some of the tickets were going up to like 250 quid, which is absolutely mental for any like one day gig. I think that's stupid. And then also I looked at Coldplay tickets, because everyone's probably seen the trend on like TikTok and on even on YouTube and stuff of Coldplay's gigs actually look pretty incredible.
Yeah.
It's not someone I ever thought I'd want to go see, but after seeing some of the videos, and obviously I know a few of their songs, they're pretty decent. I was like, yeah, you know what, I could do that. So again, went on, looked at I think it was Etihad in Manchester, and the only tickets that were left, and these weren't like VIP, you didn't get anything special with them, were like 350 quid a ticket.
Fucking hell.
Which is more expensive than the whole Leeds Fest weekend was.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. You see all these kind of prices nowadays, which you kind of start to think, how does it justify it? With Coldplay, seeing their stage show and everything that they do with, they've got the bands in the audience as well. Everyone's got lights and stuff. You think, okay, maybe you can justify a higher price, closer to £100, but not 350 quid. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I just think no matter what, no one should be charging that much. And I don't think my problem is, I don't think it's actually Coldplay. I think it's the new Ticketmaster thing. I don't think Coldplay would have ever said yeah to 350 quid like for standard seating tickets. I don't think any artist of that size would do. In fact, I don't think not of that size, just anyone would do that in general, really.
It's a bit of a poor business move for the band itself if it was their choice, because obviously you're pricing out a lot of your fans then, and a lot of people that want to see you can't go and see you, and you end up with a lot of people there that have the money to see you, but might not be the biggest fan. So I recently looked at Muse tickets for next year, because they're touring next summer. They're doing a couple of dates in the UK, and those were £80. And it again, more justified than like obviously 350 quid, but £80 is like, that used to be like a Slam Dunk ticket. Like that was genuinely the price of a Slam Dunk ticket. And don't get me wrong, Muse are a phenomenal band. I really like them, but it's something that I just can't justify. There's maybe one or two artists out there that I would justify 100+ price tag. So people like Eminem and people like that, of that kind of stature. But when it comes to bands and people that are big but aren't huge, you start to think, is anybody getting these tickets? Is that the reason why you see all these big bands not selling out the arenas that they used to sell out? Is it because people can't afford it anymore? Is it because people just can't get there? They're going to have to pay for travel. They have to pay for food. They're paying arena prices for the drinks. And, that's ridiculous. It's £6 or £7. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So they're paying all that on top of the price of the ticket already. It gets like astronomical. And
yeah, this is what I mean. Like when we went to see Green Day, for example, that was actually one of the better value gigs, to be honest, because there was Green Day, Fall Out Boy and Weezer for like 80 quid, which is, for all three of those bands, that's a very reasonable price in my opinion, because you'd pay at least 40 quid for Green Day and Fall Out Boy. Maybe not, they weren't that great, but Weezer.
The other thing with that as well, with that gig, was that it felt more like a festival show as well. So it was a bigger stage
all day. It was on from, we got there at like 2-3 o'clock or something and didn't leave till 11. So that's what I mean, value for money wise. But even still, like that day out ended up costing us loads, because we had to eat while we were there. We had to buy all our drinks there, which was really expensive. And then we had to get to Huddersfield and back. So it probably cost me like an extra 100 quid on top of the ticket. And that's like standard in my brain now.
Yeah. That seems to be what people are just kind of accepting now and saying, yeah, we'll pay that, which is probably why they're getting away with charging these prices. But how much did you say the 1975 was?
60 quid.
60. So I think that's still in the realms of reasonable.
Yeah, and to be honest, I personally think that like 60 quid is the max that an artist should hit, unless they're like world-renowned good. You know, unless it's like I could get Metallica or Foo Fighters maybe hitting 70, 80 quid because they're like one of the biggest bands in the world. But I think 60 quid is the maximum that some of these bands should hit. And I saw one the other week, Cortinas announced they're doing Heaton Park, and I think it's for the 15th anniversary of the St. Jude album, which is a 15-year-old album, which was... They've literally probably only had like one good album out of the last few, like not even just in my opinion, just according to critics and stuff as well. So for a band that's not had much relevancy since the 2010s, that was 60 quid, and I was thinking that's a bit of a rip-off, really.
Yeah. You're pushing it a little bit there, and there's other artists that, like you're saying, with justifying it. If you're not present, if you're not in the current day, you know, if you're not an artist that's been big in the last like 5 or 10 years, I don't really see much reason for you to be able to charge that much anyway, because surely the want isn't there as much as the other bands. But like we were saying, you're then pricing out your actual core fan base then as well. But there are some artists that come over and, you know, they've still got reasonable ticket prices. Like, for example, Joey Valance and Bray. I got tickets to go see those. Those were £15.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, they're only playing like a 250 cap venue in Manchester, and you know they're playing all the small venues. They might get an upgrade by then, but regardless, that's the ticket price that they've gone with, and they're traveling from the US. And don't get me wrong, they obviously not got all the equipment. They've not got a band to get all the instruments for and bring all that across that they have to pay for. But I like to see that there are some artists out there that still aren't charging out the arse, because I could easily see them charging 30 to 40 quid and not getting away with it. But with them still being a small artist, you think, are they doing that to allow more people to turn up? Because with a lower price, you kind of, you introduce that idea of, oh, I like them. I'm not a massive fan, but for 15 quid, yeah, I'm going to go see them.
Yeah, I think 15 quid's reasonable, like more than reasonable for any gig, in my opinion. Like, you still see some, like at the smaller venues in Leeds, for example, at the Brudenell and stuff, are still around 15, 20 quid for most gig tickets. And there is some reasonable ones. I've got tickets to see Inhaler in Manchester in a couple of months, and I think they were only like 25 quid, and they're one of the like biggest up-and-coming indie bands at the minute. They're already pretty big, like the supporting Fender at St. James's Park, etc. And sometimes I understand that it may be the cost of like hiring out the venue and things like that, or getting the land to do the outdoor gig on will obviously play a factor. But I just think with how much tickets are rising on a regular basis, because I remember in 2017 I went to a gig in Liverpool, and it was to see Kings of Leon, and the support acts were Franz Ferdinand, Sam Fender, Circa Waves. So you had like loads of sick bands on. Admittedly, like Fender wasn't as big then, but Circa Waves were like in the peak. Franz Ferdinand are a pretty well-known band. They charge 40 quid a ticket normally anyway.
Yeah.
And that whole gig was 55 quid. And that felt pretty reasonable. Leeds Fest used to be 60 quid for a day ticket when I went for the first time. Now it's like 90, near on 100 quid.
Yeah, I had to pay about 100 quid for a Friday ticket. Yeah.
Slam Dunk used to be like 60, 70 quid for a day ticket. Now
we're talking 100 quid again.
Yeah, this is what I mean. I feel like the prices have gone up massively, like by like 50% in some cases. But a lot of these bands haven't even gotten any bigger. Like, they haven't actually scaled up their audience, which is why you mentioned Muse. I looked at those tickets the other day. They've barely sold any. In the Huddersfield Stadium, standing's still available, and pretty much every single stand you can still get loads of seats in. And I just think if they'd priced it 20, 30 quid cheaper, a lot of their core fan base, who will be like working class people in the UK, would actually be able to go.
That's it. Yeah, I think another issue with it is that obviously everything costs more these days. So I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to justify the cost to themselves, because touring, they've got to take the whole stage, they've got to pay all the stage hands, they've got to pay the people to get it there, set it up, you've got to pay all the sound people, all the light people and all that. So it's justified on their end, but then it kind of crosses the line of, at what point does the justification become something that prices people out? Like, you've got, I feel like obviously touring is not a massively profitable thing for bands to do. Like, they don't make a shitload of money off it. Most money is merchandise and CD sales. So for bands like that to start charging the higher prices, it's clear that they're just trying to justify the cost that they're having to pay. So I'd be interested to see if the trend of ticket prices is global, or whether it's just a United Kingdom thing. Because I'd like to see if in America, if the prices have also gone up as steeply. I imagine they've increased because, you know, everything increases in price, but whether they've increased at such a percentage that the UK ticket prices have had, then it'll be interesting to compare the two, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd also like to know how much of it boils down to more of like a management decision. Because I'd imagine a lot of these bands, especially some of the bigger ones like Muse and like bands on their level, the 1975, although they're only 60 quid, which isn't as bad. I think that it might be more their management or record label saying like, we need to make as much profit as possible, so it's going to be 80 quid. And I imagine some of these bands might have not priced it at that level and taken a little bit less profit in order to sell out all of their gigs and let some more of the fans get tickets.
Because on the flip side of it, to side with the bands on this, I mean, Muse charging 80 quid, they could be losing out on money doing that. You know what I mean? That could be them being nice, and it should actually charge 120 to justify how many people they're going to get in. But then, like we're saying, if they're charging 80 quid and they're not selling it out, you know, have they shot themselves in the foot by charging that price? Should they have charged less and sold more? Or should they charge more and sell less? It's like it's a difficult
strange.
one.
It is difficult, but it, like gigs like the Green Day one make me think that surely there is still like enough money to be made without charging huge prices, because them and Fall Out Boy, two huge bands, both are big enough to headline Leeds Fest and have done in the past. 80 quid to see both of them plus another couple bands in Weezer, and there was someone else on. So if that was only 80 quid in the same venue as Muse is 80 quid,
yeah,
it doesn't make much sense. That's why I think that maybe it's a management decision.
Unless they're bringing some phenomenal support acts, which I very much doubt. But
Royal Blood with support from Muse, who are pretty good.
Oh, are they actually? Yeah, true. Okay,
I like
fair
them,
play. But again, it doesn't justify the cost. They're not Royal Blood are good, but they're not Weezer. They're not Fall Out Boy. You know, if we're comparing it to that show, they're not on that scale.
Yeah.
So you know, I mean, their stage show is phenomenal, Muse's stage show. So I do think the majority of where the ticket price is going is to pay for what they're putting on. But then there's also bands like Slipknot, for example. They've got an album coming out at the end of this month, so I expect them to be touring next year. And I've already committed to getting a ticket, and I know for a fact that's going to be nearly 100 quid. Like right. I can guarantee it's going to be at least 70, but I feel like it's going to be pushing 90 personally. And it's ridiculous, but again, it depends how big of a fan you are and how much you can afford to spend on that, because I know some people will be massive fans, they can't afford it, and they put themselves out of pocket to go and see these bands, and then they're putting themselves into debt to go and see the band that they love, and it's such a difficult like.
Well, also Ticketmaster have recently introduced you can buy now, pay later, so you can pay for gig tickets like Klarna wise, which I saw that in JD Sports the other day as well, and I think that companies who are promoting that actively is pretty poor as well. Like I understand it probably gives people who don't have as much money the opportunity to actually see people, but then it's like that's because the ticket prices are stupid. Like Ticketmaster at the same time as saying, oh, we're giving you this option so that you can pay over a few months, are saying, oh, but if loads of people want the tickets, we'll triple the price.
It's very predatory as well, because then there are also, I know there's a lot of them that are 0% interest, but there are a few that have got, you know, a little bit of interest on it. So they're charging them more at the end of the day anyway, and they're getting money for that. So it's a bit of a, it's good that it allows people to pay in payment plans, but then at the same time, should people be committing themselves to a debt? Because that's essentially what that is. You know, that will go on your credit record, and that'll be something that you'll have to pay off. Should they be committing themselves to that to see their favorite band play? Like that's such a it's
a tough one, man. And I genuinely think it is at the point now, not even just with gigs as well, with like gigs, most sporting events like football, most Premier League teams, boxing events, etc. If you're a everyday working person on an average wage in the UK and have a house, etc., you actually will probably be able to get like 2 tickets a year, and that'll be like a real big treat. Which is sad, because a lot of sports and especially like music events were originally like made by, and those are the people making these artists so popular. So whoever's decision it is, I hope that at some point down the line we start to see ticket prices across the board fall a little bit more. Yeah,
fingers crossed. And also. Fuck off with your stupid fees.
Oh, yeah, I know.
With Ticketmaster's fees. If you go on Ticketmaster and you go to buy a ticket, I now go to every alternate like option that they have for ticket sales, because things like C tickets, you'll save like £5 on fees.
Yeah.
And £5 might not sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, 80 quid and then it's 75. It's, you know, it's a chunk of it.
Yeah. So by the time you've bought 10 tickets in a year, you're getting a free one.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think they're very scummy by having those fees on there, because they charge more fees from what I've seen personally. They charge more fees than anybody else does. And they also don't even offer physical tickets.
Yeah,
It's all e-tickets.
You
If
can
you go-
pay for a souvenir ticket.
That's
though.
it, yeah. But if you go through C-tickets, by default, you pay for the postage, you get the ticket, and it works out cheaper than Ticketmaster, who are sending you an email.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, I think Ticketmaster need to sort the shit out, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
big
whether
time.
they will or not. Thank you for watching. That was a clip from the Man Overboard podcast.
And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to click on the links down below, because we're on every streaming service, and that's where you can find full episodes.
Peace.